we're gonna close this out with probably another really big scale type event. We've got several types of World Cup qualifiers coming up for audiences to view across CBS Sports platforms and to hear us chat about on Attacking Third. I mean, it almost feels like, well, it almost feels like we got it all, Lisa, doesn't it?
We do have it all, Sandra. We are so lucky. And Attacking Third, we have it all too for everyone. This is probably the most exciting part of 2022, at least for me, because these World Cup qualifiers are sometimes more exciting than like actually the World Cup games, because these teams are fighting for everything they have to get into the World Cup. This is huge. A lot of the games have already started in 2021 and a lot of things have already happened. But this is the year, and this really is the summer coming up of 22, where all of the teams will be determined for the World Cup and then the Olympics as well that are coming up. So 32 teams competing in the 9th Women's World Cup. It's being hosted in Australia and New Zealand. And this is an expanded format. In 2019, there was only 24 women's teams competing. Now in 2023, there will be 32. So more spots and slots opening up because the women's game is growing. Thank goodness, because it's about freaking time. Am I right, Sandra? Like, it is about time that this game keeps growing. So it's being hosted by Australia and New Zealand. So both of those countries have already qualified for the World Cup, and they are the only ones. So we don't know the other teams that are in, but there's a lot of possibilities, especially with 32 teams that will be in the World Cup. But it all starts with the qualifiers, because of all the teams in the countries and around the world, you have to narrow it down, and it goes by federation. That's how, kind of like big picture, that's how it works. So for the United States, they're in CONCACAF along with North America, Central America, and the Caribbean. So for Canada and the United States, they're both in CONCACAF. And we'll dive into CONCACAF specifically a little each year as we dive into these World Cup qualifiers. But Sandra, why don't you hit us with who else could potentially qualify for the World Cup?
Yeah, so I mean, obviously the big one there is CONCACAF. We're talking about them a little bit and what we're going to be covering on CBS Sports. We're excited to talk about perhaps the teams that you maybe don't get a ton of the headlines, right? You're talking about United States women's national team, right? Heavy hitters, and you've got Olympic gold medalist Canada, right? But there's a ton of other teams within that we're excited to take a look at and really sort of highlight nations and players moving forward. But I mean, it's not just CONCACAF that we're going to be taking a look at CBS Sports and Attacking Third. We've already had a number of games for UEFA for the European World Cup qualifiers, and coming up very, very soon is going to be the AFC Asian Women's Cup, and that also runs as their qualifiers as well. And these are, again, events, all types of fixtures that you can catch on CBS Sports, Paramount Plus. And I think the other thing that I'm really excited about with this, Lisa, and we've been teasing it a little bit in this one, because this is the episode where we're letting everybody know what's coming at them on Attacking Third CBS Sports in 2022. But we're going to have previews coming up for a lot of these qualifiers that are taking place. So while we'll be taking really closer looks and like a close watchful eye on something like CONCACAF, right? Something like the Asian UEFA coming up, because we have access to those games and are able to take a look at them. That doesn't mean that we're just going to stop there. We're very, very excited to take a look at really all of these different, participating nations and regions. And I don't think people realize that this is going to come up much quicker than they anticipate. It's like you see this, and it's like maybe you look at the end date, like, oh, like you'll have the results in the summer. We'll know who's going to the World Cup, right? But there's a start for all of these different qualifiers, and so many of them are already taking place in January and February. Again, it's coming much quicker than people anticipate. The Asian Women's Cup is going to be kicking off on January 20th, and they're going to get into competition, and we're going to have, again, a preview of that coming up soon. But then you've got, CONCACAF February the 16th. You've got UEFA February 23rd, going all the way through to October. So there's a lot here that we're excited to get into, and also excited to maybe bring some guests back in, right, Lisa? Get some friends back in, maybe some new faces in to talk about this. We're just here to talk and ramble is our heart's desire about this space with everybody moving forward.
Yes, I'm pumped to get some guests on and hear their thoughts about maybe underdogs heading into the World Cup qualifiers. What teams could maybe make a run and head all the way to the World Cup and make big splashes at the 2023 World Cup? Because when you look at the landscape for women's soccer and all of the different teams in the club, of course, there are the heavy hitters, like you mentioned, the United States, Canada, Brazil, France. Like, lots of these teams are going to be making a big splash in these World Cup, but some of the smaller teams, and especially in the different federations, like the Asian Cup that is coming up, there are 27 teams that will be competing in that and only 6 qualifying spots. So that's like the grand scope of things. Yes, the World Cup overall will have 32 teams involved, but there are so many teams that are going to fight to get there, and a lot of teams that won't make it just based on it. I mean, in CONCACAF, there are 32 teams competing in the CONCACAF Women's Championship, the W Championship, to try to get into the World Cup. It's crazy. In Africa, there are 43 teams. UEFA has 51 teams. There are just players all over the world that this is their biggest year ever, because if you qualify for the World Cup, that's in. Hopefully we'll see some first-time teams getting into the World Cup. That's what I want to see. But lots more previews to come of all of these qualifiers, which ones we're keeping an eye on, our dark horses, some underdogs, and our guests will give us their insight. Let us take a peek into their mind as to which teams they're going to be watching for.
I think you're correct. I think there is going to be the potential to have, some new, debutantes, right, for the World Cup, because there always is in some capacity, right, whenever a World Cup comes around. But the fact that this competition is going to expand from 24 to 32 teams is obviously going to open up some space and potential for there to be some new faces in the 2023 World Cup, and yeah. Just hyped about it. I'm getting a little overwhelmed just thinking about it in the best of ways.